Welcome to the show that looks at truth, fiction, and reality with a smirk. I'm Aaron Peterson.
I'm Amanda Sink.
And I'm Zach Parkerson.
Welcome back to Smirk. Each week, one of our hosts introduces an original story, which we then use as springboard for our spirited and lighthearted discussion, and whatever the moral or theme of their story is. Amanda, it is your turn this week.
Woo woo. Raise the roof.
Is it? Does that mean it's rap related?
Nope.
Amanda, could I get a hint what the story might be about?
I specifically was told not to ask that, so I don't know why you do.
Zach, there is the word assist in the story.
Okay, great. I've got it all figured out.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right.
It's about Michael Jordan.
Smart. I like
I don't think he ever assisted. Didn't he just take the ball and then just keep going back and forth? And every time Scotty got the ball, he took that ball too?
That's the moral and theme of the story.
Share.
You don't have to assist.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
This is going to set a precedent that is completely wrong for this story. Everyone's going to go into this thinking it's about basketball now.
Space Jam.
Ooh, they're coming out with the second one.
That's really a shame.
No, it's not.
Space James.
Well said. All right, Amanda, let's go ahead and get this done.
Let's talk about my story. Alan's 3-year stay began 5 years ago as of today. From the moment I met him, I knew he was a bright light. He just seemed to be so optimistic and happy. But as the years progressed, I noticed his demeanor shifting. He just wasn't himself. He wasn't happy. He didn't have any family visiting him anymore. And the doctors said there wasn't much more that can be done. It was the end of the line for him. To this day, I have never regretted my decision. It was a busy day, I remember that. The other patients seemed full of energy and rambunctious, as much as they could be. But not Alan. He was so lethargic and in so much pain. The cancer had spread to every organ in his body. There wasn't much left to him. I remember how frail his fingers seemed when he grabbed my hand. With so much commotion, it was just Alan and I. We had become friends, and I think that's why he felt comfortable asking me to break the law. He wanted out, but here in Washington, it just wasn't legal yet. He took my hand, looked me in the eyes as a teardrop fell, and with the faintest of breath, said, "Sandy, please, just end it." There are moments in life where you contemplate doing the wrong thing, others where you don't have to, and then there was this time with Alan. I didn't have to think. I could see, hear, and feel just how much pain he was in. His hands were shaking as they pressed against mine. Without hesitation, I nodded. So I did it. I helped him end the pain. And I don't regret it, despite the time I've been serving in prison for it. This was my friend, and I knew I had to do what he asked of me, no matter the consequences. It set the precedent for the law to be passed, physician-assisted death, but I won't get out. I'll be here for 5 more years, maybe 3 with probation if all goes well. His family, the ones who stopped visiting, they still write to me. They've thanked me. They said it was too hard to see him that way and that I was stronger than they ever could have been. That Alan was lucky to have a friend like me. They defended me in court. I know they mean well. But I'm stuck in here with arsonists and murderers as if what I did was the same. Our justice system is so jacked.
Jacked! Just like Dwayne Johnson.
Yep, that's the exact same. Sandy's getting muscles in there.
What else are you going to do?
I don't know. I had a dog named Sandy. My mom put her down.
Well,
that's all I thought about this whole story. It's a great story. And I'm like, oh, poor Sandy. My dog. I love that dog.
This just got really depressing.
Well, not anymore, you don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't. She put her down when I wasn't even home.
Well, that's probably better.
I mean, you told a cool story, but let's talk about my dog. So Sandy was this beautiful golden retriever cocker spaniel mix. Just a glorious thing.
Okay.
Golden terrier. Maybe she wasn't a great dog.
Oh, yeah, you really loved Sandy.
You're a terrible dog parent.
I know. Well, it was a mix. So your story was all about assisted death, right?
What do you think the moral of this story is?
Don't get caught.
Well, there's that.
Weigh the risks.
Well, no, that's not right. Similar deeds.
Oh, okay.
Similar deeds are not always equitable. Equatable.
Well, we would
It's
never would have
equatable, I
guessed
think,
that.
is how you say it.
Nobody would even come up with. Well, you can't even think which word it is.
Can't even figure out how to say it.
Yeah, that's not fair to us.
Google, how do you say equatable?
And I don't know. Going to the clink. I mean, yeah, I feel
The
bad for you.
clink?
Yeah.
Hold on. The what?
That's what we call the jail.
You've never heard the term clink before?
No. And who is we? Who's we who's calling it the clink?
Me, myself, and I.
I definitely.
Me and Jesus.
Oh man, Rob, I got sent to the clink. Damn.
What?
You know, like
That's what it,
people
yeah.
actually say that.
You've never heard the clink?
When I think of clinking, I think of two people sitting at a table and they're about to clink their glasses of alcohol together before they take
What?
a drink and they go, cheers, clink,
What planet do you live on?
Earth. Apparently not the
No.
same one as you.
Apparently you're on a continent all on your own, man. How have you never heard of the clink, the slam?
The clink? Now it's the
The
clink,
big
like
house.
the target.
Yeah, it is like the Target.
Yes.
You don't get your shopping carts back there either. I don't know what that meant.
I don't know either because that's Aldi.
Let's try to figure this Target Aldi thing out.
Let's not. Well, I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think she made the right call assisting Alan?
No.
No?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you feigned surprise. The answer is no, she didn't make the right call. She's ended up in jail, and it's not her call to make.
But it was his. He's asking her.
Yeah, that's cool. He asked her to commit a felony.
Okay. all right.
Bad call.
Right.
What was his name? Sandy is the person that
Sandy
killed him.
is
Yeah,
Alan.
So, Alan. Alan's a son of a bitch, is what I'm going with. Like, your last moments, I get it, you're suffering, you're having a hard time, man, it sounds awful. I get why you'd want to go. But you're asking your friend to basically ruin their life because yours sucks? That's not right.
Okay.
Man, I hadn't considered it from the angle that Aaron's putting forth, but Alan was selfish.
It's kind of selfish.
Let's not slander Alan. What if his family is listening?
Well, that's going to be awkward.
Your son was selfish.
Potentially. I mean, allegedly.
Yes, allegedly.
Okay, seriously, like put it in a perspective. It's a very noble thing, but also that's only if you're only looking at it from your perspective, that is selfish. That's not necessarily I understand it. I understand where he's coming from, but on the same token, Sandy is feeling like almost guilty. I mean, he almost feels like he has to do this for his friend. He loves his friend.
Well, it was a she.
Okay, whatever. Somebody feels bad about the situation, so they feel like they have to do it. And now you do it to make life a little easier for Alan, but you're making Sandy's life harder. It's great that she doesn't regret it, but her life would have been completely different without that decision. So that's kind of selfish, yes.
That's true. It's true.
Yes, it's selfish of Andy, and I understand Sandy wanting to do it.
Alan.
I would. I got the names right.
No, it's Alan.
No, it's Sandy and Alan.
Yeah. I said Alan is selfish.
You said
and I
Andy.
can understand Sandy wanting to do it.
You said Andy, but it's cool. Let's continue with your point.
I said Alan and Sandy, didn't I?
No, you said Andy. You
did
combined.
just now.
You literally combined the names. They are one soul.
Well, they are now in death.
Wow.
That was dark.
That went morbid.
No, but I mean, this is a thing that should be legal. This is really dumb that this is a conversation. So how about that?
Well, that's a great segue into my next question. How do you feel about there are some states in the country that have made it legal for physicians to assist people who basically are at their end and just want to kind of cut it off so that way they're not actually killing themselves. But I think they get like an injection or something and that just kind of...
Takes him out.
Yep. How do you feel about it if it were legal?
Well, I think that it's really dumb that we're even having this conversation.
Oh, okay. Well,
If I could
I could repeat
to
what
build
you
on
just
what I
said.
just said.
What you literally just said.
Dying people should be able to make their own calls. You know that you can't possibly fathom what they're going through, so it's kind of crummy of you to be like, nah, man, you can't end it because we say so. Even though you're just going to die a slow, painful death, it's no biggie. I assume it's a religious holdover from the religious days of our early country that need to go away.
It really just depends on what you consider to be the end. The end is really, I mean, it's up for grabs, I would say. And I know every state's going to have a different interpretation, but I mean, who's to say somebody's up against a wall and they're just done? They don't have the right to make that decision. You know what I mean? So
it's
why
their
does it
own
have to be
life.
right? But I'm just saying it's almost seen to be criminal to end your life, right? Suicide. Is that any different? Just because
I would say it's not criminal. I think that's what the stigma is.
you get put in an institution. You will be checked for psychiatric issues.
The
but if you have
idea is
severe
to try
depression,
to help you stay alive, though.
I understand that. I'm just saying, what's the difference between I'm dying of cancer, I don't want to go on, or I'm sick of my life, I don't want to go on? What's the difference?
The fact that you have the potential to get better when it's about a mental illness versus a physical illness that literally has
What if there is no potential? What if it's schizophrenia? You're never going to recover from that.
There are ways that you can improve.
You have medications that you can take if you want to, but say someone doesn't want to make that choice and live on medication, just like you could live on a machine for the rest of your life, but you don't want to, so you elect suicide. You know what I mean? And I know to a lot of people the comparison isn't fair, but if you break it down to semantics or take away the semantics, it is equitable or equatable.
I don't think it is, though, because you're talking about one thing where there's no ability for them to get any better in a physical, like cancer, a terminal illness, and it is defined that they have to be terminal for this to be something that they can utilize, versus somebody who has a mental illness. It's not, I don't want people to think that it's a crime to have a mental illness. You just need help. You don't realize necessarily what's going on. Like if you're experiencing hallucinations and delusions and you're not on a medication, you're going to want that to end because it's really scary to constantly have somebody in your ear, essentially.
Wouldn't suffering and knowing you're going to die at some point later, maybe a year down the road or 6 months down the road, also be in that same ballpark of being so scary you just want it to end?
Well, yes, but I'm saying that there's potential for someone to get better who has schizophrenia or another mental illness. There are ways for them to get therapy and improve their life, versus somebody who has a terminal illness. They are medically only going to get worse until they die.
But see, once again, this is a society definition. This is society saying you can get better because we say this is better. What if they don't feel that's a better life? What if I got to take pills every single day for the rest of my life? And I know that if I miss one, I got to live through that hell again.
But if somebody had cancer and they could take medication, then they would elect that.
But there are machines that can keep them alive. So even if it's terminal, there are ways a lot of times there are ways to extend their life. It's just very uncomfortable and it's miserable. But what is the difference to someone who is suffering through a mental illness and just happens to be younger or whatever? They want to walk away.
Well, if somebody has medication for their mental illness, they're not debilitated physically. They don't have to sit inside.
I disagree with that.
People who have cancer, they literally cannot move out of this bed. Somebody who has a mental illness without medication are in the same boat, but there's potential for them to take medication to get better to where they can live a normal life. What we as a society determine to be a normal life, to make them feel better and go about that life. It's not that it's a criminal act for someone to die by suicide, but we want to try to help deter people from doing that when we know that there's some way for them to get better, versus terminal cancer. You only have a certain amount of time. There's a clock on you at this point, unless somebody has the cancer pill out there that we can give to cancer patients, and then we can encourage them. You don't want to do this because we have some sort of a life-saving method for you that can help you get back to your normal life out of a hospital bed.
No.
So what you're saying is all life is pointless, so who cares? How about that?
What is Zach's response?
Yeah. Well, you finished what you were saying. Now let me explain what I was saying. That's your opinion. Science can say that. And yes, it's a fact. Your life could be better by some people's definitions, not necessarily by the person who's living that life. And I can 100% know people who've been in this situation where they have a debilitating mental illness. They do not want to spend their life on medicine, constantly afraid of what happens if they miss a pill. It's actually more stressful for them to do that because it's a hard illness to deal with, certain mental illnesses. And it's a struggle. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's the right thing. I'm saying that's society determining what they determine to be a normal life. For many people, that would not be a normal life. I would not. Personally, I would prefer if I got to a point where I had an illness of some sort. I got to an illness of some kind that required me to be on medication for the rest of my life, 5 or 6 pills. And I know if I don't take one, I'm gravely ill or I have hallucinations or whatever it is. I don't necessarily particularly want that life. That's my choice. But that is, once again, it's like we pick and choose what we deem acceptable because we see, well, this person could have a fine enough life. So They shouldn't be able to choose. But these people, their life really is very limited and it's going to suck. I get why they want to exit. That's society dictating what's acceptable for this kind of thing. I say if you're going to have assisted suicide, it has to be across the board or you don't have it. Period.
Yeah. Why would you restrict that option? If you want like a medically assisted suicide, right, you have to go through doctors to do this type of suicide. And like maybe you're worried about mental health patients, right, because they might not be in the right state of mind to make that call. You could put some kind of a time window. Like if you request suicide, you can't have access to the medically assisted suicide for a year. And like in that year, you have to see a psychologist or something like that to try to kind of help people that are at the precipice as an idea. In this idealistic society of mine, everybody has access to suicide.
That's not, wow, I can't believe I laughed at that. I 100% am not condoning suicide or even suicide. I know that suicide is prominent in our society, and if you have those thoughts, you should definitely seek professional help. I'm only talking about if we as a society deem it acceptable for this kind of thing to occur, it has to occur for anyone. It's not just what we deem is acceptable to end your existence. We tend to throw on our own beliefs and our own morals to determine what other people should do with their lives. If it's your life, and if I do agree, checks and balances, maybe you go through a process, maybe you get reevaluated and everything else, and you can demonstrate why you feel in the state of mind that you feel in, then maybe that's where you get to. But I think either A, you don't have it, or B, you have to allow for everybody. Now, that's a long version to get to my point, which is I 100% don't support people suffering and going through that, and I know why they would want to leave. But I also 100% say you can't do it for some and not everybody.
So ultimately, what's your decision?
Well, my decision is you can have it, but you have to have checks and balances.
Well, your decision is to say that you are for it, that you are okay with it. With what are your stipulations?
I'm okay with assisted suicide as long as there is some kind of understanding that it's not going to apply just to your perfect group. You know, if society is going to deem it okay, you have to make it okay for people of other issues that just they want to check out for whatever reason. I'm not saying that suicide is an option. It absolutely is not for the majority of everyone. There are exceptions to every rule, and there are some illnesses that are debilitating that people don't want to deal with, that I understand where they're coming from. You know, if you're hooked up to a machine, it's not terminal, right? Maybe you have some consciousness, but that's going to be your life for the rest of it. You're someone who you only have the motion of your finger. There are a lot of paraplegics and whatnot that only have the motion of their finger, and they are very unhappy. And I'm not saying that they should even contemplate anything, but should they, and this is something that society deems legal, they should have the option to go through checks and balances and get, obviously you go through legal means and everything else to get the permission from society to say, okay, you can do this, because that's their life. And I 100% believe your life is your life.
But in the same respect, like I get what you're saying. You're saying is if you have a system, a process set up where people kind of go through an evaluation to try to, like, not just for physical illnesses, but also for mental illnesses for people who are very severe. That way both people have the option. I would
call it debilitating illnesses is what I would call it.
Okay. But regardless, as long as there's some sort of process for people to go through, then it would be more acceptable. Don't you think that would increase the likelihood of people dying by suicide then?
Yeah. So don't do it then. I'm 100% sincere.
That is the risk you take, I think, by introducing this kind of legal action, though. You know, like there's going to, if you're condoning suicide of some nature, it's going to increase suicide across the board because you're telling people it's okay for some people.
I guess I'm in my own head trying to find a single mental illness that is so incurable without medication that your life is as stricken as cancer can lead you to.
If you don't have it, how would you know?
Because I've spent a lot of time.
So have I. But I also have observed a lot of schizophrenia patients, and I get why they
without medication.
Even with medication, there are some bouts of schizophrenia that medication it's not going away. You have it forever, and it just limits the degrees of excessiveness to it. for a lot of people, that doesn't make a very solid life. And I'm not advocating that's what they should do. I'm just saying the matter of the point is it's not any specific illness. It's just that if you say it's okay, what Zach said, if you say it's okay, you have to make it more okay for a lot of other people. You can't just say, well, you got to be terminal and you got to be this and you got to be that. Well, okay, that's not fair because then that's you, society, telling me, I don't know what's the best way to word this. It's you, society, telling everybody else what's acceptable. And we already do enough of that, I think. If you're going to introduce something like this, and I probably think it shouldn't be a law for many reasons, and this is the primary one, it's too hard to justify that to me. In my mind, it's too hard to justify that because I can think of so many other things that aren't terminal that I can understand why someone would want to check out, would want to just say, this is it, man, this is it. I wouldn't want to live as I can only move one finger. I mean, that's not the best life I can picture for myself. I could understand why someone would think about doing that. And if it's going to be legal, why shouldn't they have the option?
No, it's fair. And one of the questions I was going to ask you, because you brought up in the first question that we talked about that, or one of you two did, that it was a selfish decision. I can't remember who implemented that first, but don't you think it could be a selfish decision for the person who, if it were legal, and in some states in the United States it is legal, I think there's like 6 of them, but isn't that almost a selfish decision to put a physician through multiple of these assisted deaths? Because they have to let that sit on their shoulders then every time they do that, deciding when someone is going to die by their own hand. Literally their own hand.
Well, no, because you're talking the difference between legally assisted suicide and illegally. That's what I meant by selfish. And,
Well, isn't it still kind of a selfish decision for us as society to place that burden on a physician's shoulders?
Sure.
Doctors and physicians already have one of the highest levels of suicide themselves, where like the amount of people that they lose just from doing their job is debilitating to them mentally, that they have their own issues they deal with. And if we start to put additional deaths that are, I don't want to say preventable, but we're taking into our own hands with our professionals and making them do it, forcing them to make that decision to do it if they want to pursue their career.
I wouldn't agree with that probably because you're electing to do that job. They don't have to do that job. They're choosing to do that job. Where earlier when I said, specifically when I meant selfish, is Alan is asking Sandy to do it for him, knowing that Sandy's the only one that's going to suffer any consequences.
Okay, but remove that then. Well, we won't talk about the comparison. I want to talk strictly about the decision to put that on a physician's shoulders. That's a physician.
I mean, if they elect to do it, it's their job.
Yeah, I would assume that's a specialty you go into, right? I mean,
from what I've read, all it says is that your physician would basically provide a lethal medication to the terminally ill suffering patient at their request.
Yeah.
But I don't see the line connecting A to B on that, because but we can't put it on them because it's not legal. And if it was legal, then they would know what they were getting into.
It is legal. It's changed, and 6 states have made it legal for this assisted death.
But it's still their option. They don't have to do that. All a physician has to do is say, I'm not going to handle that. And then it's done.
Yeah.
So it's on them.
I think there's a gun to their head.
But then doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of being able to have this in place? If you had, for example, a religious doctor who doesn't believe in, let's say they're Jehovah's Witness and they don't believe in blood transfusions, and they say, because this is how I feel about my own life, I don't want to do this, I'm not going to perform a blood transfusion, but that's part of their job.
Right.
Part of their, that's what we expect of those doctors. They're not performing an aspect of their job that we as public paying citizens expect for that to be performed.
I have no problem with that.
So you're okay with that, you're okay with them choosing which...
I don't know how these are comparable.
Because my point is that we're now allowing physicians to pick and choose at this point what things they're going to do.
They always have been able to.
You can't go to a physician and they just deny you coverage.
Don't they, if you don't have insurance all the time?
Not if you go to an emergency room.
Well, anyway. When you have you can't force a doctor to treat certain illnesses if they don't want to treat them. It's simple as that. All you have to do is say, I don't want to do assisted suicides, and they're out.
Right, but I'm saying this is defeating the purpose then. If you have doctors who aren't doing it, what if nobody wants to do it?
Then nobody does it.
But there will be people who will do it, and you will give them, if there's not enough of them doing them, you'll offer them a financial compensation, and then more people will sign up to do it.
Absolutely.
Like this is a solvable issue.
Okay.
There's always going to be somebody willing to take that burden on.
Move to another state. I don't know what to say.
Well,
They can't make them do it, so.
I would say that you should, but so I didn't realize there are Jehovah's Witness doctors that just don't do blood transfusions. Shouldn't you not employ them?
That's what I was bringing up, is the comparison of allowing a doctor to pick and choose what they decide to do based on their own personal decisions.
I can tell you Jehovah's Witness doctors, they actually just don't do fields where they have to do blood transfusions.
You're right. That's what I would assume is
they just avoid that.
You get hired
specialty.
for a position where you don't have assisted suicide people.
Well, my last question is, do you think that she deserved 7 years for this crime?
Yes and no.
Oh.
Well, yes, because there was a law against it, so she knew the risk she was taking. And Alan was a jerk. Or was it Andy? I forget.
It's Alan.
Anyway, was a total jerk putting that burden on her in that situation. But also no, because it shouldn't be illegal. She shouldn't have had to make that call. He should have been able to talk to his physician to find a specialist who could have medically assisted that suicide.
Do you think 7 years is too strong, though? For even with the illegal?
He killed somebody.
I mean, he asked.
Yeah, still
Right.
killed somebody. If
Yeah,
I
I mean,
if
it's
I
too
ask
much.
you to kill my wife, which I'm not, but if I do something like that, would that not still be illegal?
Okay, so also
Crimes. Do the time. In the
separating-
clink.
we're talking now, we're picking and choosing what's constituted as murder, because if
Nope, it's a law. It's
if
already
we
a law.
legalize it, though, we're legalizing the effect of murder in some
No,
respect.
you're legalizing an assisted suicide. You're not murdering somebody. You're assisting a suicide.
But Aaron just said that
Medically.
he murdered her.
I just
or
put it in the
murdered
context
him.
of you still killed somebody, and you weren't supposed to. Period.
Also, I mean, well, he's right because it was illegal, so she did murder him.
Right. So are you saying now that in any context, do you believe that it's considered murder to assist in
Yes.
suicide?
It's murder.
No,
Well,
I do not.
not in a philosophical context, in a legal context, absolutely. It's murder.
I thought she asked us to remove the legal context.
How do you remove it? That's the whole point of the question, right?
Do you
I
consider
thought
it
she
to
just
be
asking?
I said,
morally
I
that you're
said
murdering someone?
philosophically, no. Morally, no. But in terms of the law, which is more what I care about in the world, yes.
Well, because we've legalized, it's illegal for you to kill somebody, but if somebody happens to be attacking you or they come onto your property, you can murder
Get
them.
Alan to jump out of his chair and go chase her around the room then. Bam. I guess he should have thought it out, but because his plan sucked, selfish Alan.
All right, Aaron, what do you think about the 7 years for the crime?
I'm fine with it. Look, okay, I was a law major, so I should probably preface that. I'm big on the law. Law. I love the law.
Laws are dumb.
Yes.
They're meant to be broken.
This is
They're
where-
arbitrary and they control society.
This is coming from a guy who's filled his trunk with gnomes that he stole from people's yards. I am saying that if you break the law, you do the time. She knew it was illegal. I'm really still mad at Alan about it. I think this guy really should have ponied up and figured out a better plan so that poor Sandy didn't get caught. But now Sandy's doing time in the clink, in the slam, in the big house.
I've heard Slam and Big House.
Yeah, well,
Those are notable.
And the clink.
guess
No.
what? Right now, Sandy's clinking asses.
Well,
Oh, but I meant glasses. Sorry.
So dumb.
Happy New Year. Clink.
See, that's what I think of when I hear clink.
Do you think 7 years is fair?
I think 7 years is a little harsh.
Okay.
I mean, it's not, but there's nothing in the story to talk about whether there was proof that he asked her to do it. So she could just be saying,
Ooh.
he told me to do it. You know what I mean? There's nothing
Why would she
backing it up.
cop to it? What a moron.
Well,
Sandy's
if they,
dumb.
if they found
Now she should get 14 years.
on camera, if they found her or something.
No. Well, that's true.
And she said, well, he asked me
Once
to.
more, Alan is selfish because why didn't you make a videotape where you could introduce it in court? That would help you. Help Dr. Kevorkian 1,000 times.
Yeah. There's a plot twist that actually Sandy and Alan were having an affair on their respective spouses, and Alan was going to give it up on his deathbed to his wife about the truth, and she was like, "Nah, you ain't."
That would have been a much better story. I'm going to go
Just
to
an
you for my
idea.
plot twist from now on.
There, that sounds good. Is that the last question?
Yeah, I think we've talked quite a bit,
Yeah.
particularly on question number 2.
I would say. My God. So Amanda is cool with it being legal.
No, that's not
Of
what I was
course.
saying.
I don't even know. Did you really answer?
No.
Do you think it should be legal?
I understand the idea of wanting to have that implemented, and I don't want to say that we shouldn't try to help them live the best life that they can and get out of their slump of depression so that way they don't feel the need to die by suicide. But I don't think in any situation a physician should be shouldered with the concept of taking another person's life, whether it's the same concept as self-defense and it's not actually murder. Okay, fine, I can agree to that, but they're still taking a life and you're still expecting them to burden that. Even if you signed up for it, that is going to tear away at you after a while. That is going to...
I don't know. I've met a few doctors who are just there for the money. They might not tear away so much as you think. You don't believe that there are people out there who it's not going to affect much at all?
I think there are very few, because if you look at the statistics of how many doctors are dying by suicide because they can't, the overwhelming pressures of their jobs now is unfavorable. Imagine if we started implementing a specialization for them to take other people's lives.
How about we just open a people kennel?
What?
A people kennel. And so like when things are going, you have your mom or whatever, your kids, they roll you on in. It's just like a puppy thing. We're totally cool with it if it's a cat, if it's a puppy. But we're, with people, we're like, whoa, ease up.
I don't think that pets are on the exact same level as humans. I think that's another conversation that we would have to have.
That's a problem we have as society. Because I guarantee you, whenever somebody's watching a movie or TV show, pets are 100% equal to humans, according to the people watching those shows.
They're sweet, and I think that they deserve a lot more love.
Don't you agree that people are happier when people die versus when pets die?
Totally.
Case proven.
Yeah, it's because human lives matter less.
Exactly my point. According to most people, I think they believe that pets are more important. Yet, they're okay with
pets are more likable because pets aren't going to backtalk you. Pets aren't going to cheat on you.
Whoa.
Pets aren't going to do that.
Pets are innocent, and they do not have self-awareness or sentience that humans do. And that's why humans are scum, and that's why human life matters less.
Oh, dear God.
Boom.
Is your story truth or fiction?
Why would I answer you? I'm supposed to ask you that.
Well, then get to it.
Plot twist. Again.
Right? Do you think my story is truth or fiction?
Truth.
Fiction.
Zach wins this round.
Oh, well, you got me on that one. I assumed it had to be true.
Because I said it made the change.
Because you're all like, Rawr! So I
wasn't rawr, but I just wanted to. Rawr. There was lots of questions that came up with our discussion.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
What's the title of your story?
The Assistant.
I don't know. People are
sounds like a horror movie based on this topic.
It's like it's a sequel to Secretary.
Oh, that's a different movie.
Yeah, right?
I don't think that's the same concept. But with Zach's idea, it might be.
Well, as our show goes, we will occasionally pick listener stories to read and discuss on Smirk. If you'd like the chance to have yours read, email it to mystory@smirkpodcast.com. Join the conversation by joining our Facebook group or follow us on Twitter @SmirkPodcast, and be sure to use the show's hashtag Smirk. Don't miss an episode. And please share the show with your friends, because it really does help.
And review us on iTunes.
Review us on iTunes if you get a chance. Yes, please do.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. And remember.
Whoa. No, just 5. Stop at 5. Otherwise.
It's the only number that matters.
Yeah,
well, right? I was counting up to it.
Yeah, but
like,
you just advocated 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Let's just go with 5. Let's just pretend this is the best thing you ever heard.
5 stars. As you write your own life story, always remember to tell it with a smirk.
And we have a chopper.
Get to the chopper!
Coming to you live from Channel 3, it's me.
Is he muted?
Yes, he's muted.
Coming this October, The Assistant.